separate document. Now, if you want to see what it was previously, then you have to pull up the old version and look for yourself. But the administrator can highlight in yellow when they're making a change.
That's fine. Yeah, just something to know that there's a change somewhere.
Yeah, and I think the reason I do call this out, I'll just use Route 800 as an example. The project sheet submitted in December included the additional funding to keep Route 800 on track, which I think is currently a Q4 amendment, but given that in FY27 we're sticking with status quo, the scope likely needs to change to remove some language around how this is a continuation of the FY26 Q2 amendment, and how it's going to hit certain levels of frequency, just because when it comes time to reimburse next fiscal year, we want to make sure that it's accurate, and TDA is going to look at the scope as what you can and can't reimburse.
Are we approving the agenda?
I think we do still have the motion to vote on this. We'll go ahead. If you want to vote on the FY27 program today, please say yes. If you don't want to vote on it today, please say no. Go roll call. Ashley?
No.
Tina?
No.
Caroline? Sarah?
Yes.
Stephanie?
No.
Doug?
I made the motion, so yes.
Madeline?
Yes.
Meg?
No.
Logan?
No.
And I'm a no as well. Okay, so we have the agenda as published with no action items, information items on Q4 amendments and the FY27 annual work program.
So can I continue with my other question? It was about the minutes. So we've had a lot of meetings without minutes on the agenda to review and approve from prior meetings. I'm wondering if we can, not adjustments for now, but understand when we can start seeing minutes, and if we can maybe get a status report for the next meeting or something, just where we are, which ones are missing, which ones need to be.
I can speak to the minutes. We are burning up all of the time that we have allocated for staff working group to preparing meetings and revising packets, and those minutes are not something that we can currently get to or prioritize. As you know, we have requested additional funding to help support this group, and those are the types of things that are just not happening right now, as we're using up that allocation on all these extra meetings.
Yeah, I know.
Right. Do we have any members of the public here to comment? Being none in person, just want to make sure we have any folks online. Seeing none, we don't have a consent agenda. Our first information item is the Q4 amendments. Pull up the presentation on the public engagement, hand it over to Emily.
So the Q4 amendments have gone out for public engagement. We did that via news release and social media using our community relations department. That public comment period is from March 27th through April 27th. We also shared it with partners so y'all could get it out to y'all various ways of sharing to your public. However, we have not on our end had any public outreach or public comment come into our contact.
Emma, what day was the packet sent to the partners?
I believe it was sent on the 27th. But I will verify that.
I think. Since I guess the one question I had, I know we'd had conversations at the last meeting about voting on the staffing study as part of these Q4 amendments. I guess, was it included in the public release?
I remember the annual work program, and I may have just missed, but I'm
So the Q4 went out before the annual work plan, and I thought I shared the link where the news article was going out.
The 27 release came out on 4/1 from you. So, for that. I'm just not seeing it.
If not, I can get it out and I do apologize.
There's one from the special meeting from you on 24. That's not.
Share that out with the group, but glad to hear it's gone out over news release. We'll come back and vote on that in our May meeting. Anything else on the Q4 amendments?
So, we usually try to push out any of the, relevant materials, through our stuff as well. So when does this, engagement period end?
The 27th of April. I will get it out. If it hasn't, I thought it was sent out, but if not, I will make sure it gets to everyone today.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, this was like so long ago that I can't even remember. When did we vote to send this out for public comment?
We voted to release this at the regular March meeting on March 7th or March 18th.
So it went out for public comment, and why are we not voting on it till May?
I believe the public comment period started on March 27th with April 27th as the end. That is different than the work program schedule that we had set out back in last July.
Yeah, I'm not. I guess it's just confusing that there's a 3-week public comment period for one and a public comment period for the other. Is there something to align in the
We
future?
typically do 3 weeks, every day,
Okay.
and we voted at the last meeting to do a shorter public comment period on it.
In order to be able to get it to the commissioners.
To be able to get it to commissioners.
I mean, that April 1st to the 21st is about 3 weeks, right? 7 times 3.
Yeah, that's 3 weeks,
Yeah,
21
okay.
days.
So the 3 weeks you're saying is shorter than we would typically send it out?
Yes, normally we would do 30 days.
Ah, gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
makes sense.
And I
I'm
think
with you.
as we do the schedule for the FY27 annual work program, we can make sure we set reasonable dates on when it goes out for public comment and when we expect to vote on it. I do think a vote in March or a release in March, a vote in April makes sense, but that would shorten down those comment periods. Right. There's nothing else on the Q4. We can talk about the FY27 annual work.
I
Oh, yeah,
I
no.
have another question about that. Remind me again, like I'm work backwards here. So the amendments you said were released when? At which meeting? I'm sorry.
They were-
27th?
The amendments were released to the public on the 27th. We voted to release them on the 18th.
Sorry, say that one more time.
Staff working group voted to release them on March 18th. They went out in a news release on March 27th.
Okay, so the first issue here is that this memo, this action item abstract that y'all have, says that the staff working group voted to release them on the 27th. So sounds like that needs to be changed to the 18th.
Is this a matter of grammar? Is it voted on the 18th to release them on
It
the
says voted
27th?
on March 27th,
Yeah.
staff working group voted to release
Oh,
potential amendment,
yeah.
right? Okay,
That needs to be corrected till March 18th, staff working group.
okay. And now remind me why they didn't go out for public comment until the 27th when we voted on the 18th. I'm having trouble like tracking this, and we don't have minutes, so I don't really have like a way to, go back and figure this out.
Is that just a capacity?
It's a capacity issue and there's no template or legacy documents from how this had been done before, so we had to start from scratch. And so we've created some of those this time, but it had to be done.
So Sarah, can I ask a question? Because we keep hearing about capacity issues. What is Orange County doing about filling these vacant positions? Nisha and Darlene's?
I can't speak to Nish's position. The transportation planning manager position is posted, and we have interviewed temp candidates for the staff working group administrator and hope to be making an offer this week, but that's
Oh,
going to remain as a temp position at limited to 20 hours a week unless there's additional funding.
Okay. Well, okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay, now my next question is, did we vote on these in these three different groups?
I think we did hold a vote on the staff working group administrator separately, thinking we were going item by item. I think then the rest of the ones were included as a group. So we did hold two different motions on them. I don't think we voted to release them separately as different groups, but we did hold votes in that manner.
And now there's a third group, which is.
I will say the
Okay.
Triangle West one was part of our March 27th meeting where we had conversations around the FY 27 annual work program. I believe it was not formally released by the staff working group as part of the Q4 amendments.
No.
That was my memory as well. and I
Yes.
wanted to double check.
Yes,
I think we were gonna revisit it.
yes, I think we were going to revisit it at time of voting to move them to the electeds where after public comment, we could include the staffing study as a thing we could move to the electeds. That was a conversation that we had during our FY 27 work program conversations, but it was not released to the public with the intent of it being in the Q4 amendments.
Okay. Yeah, I think just like as a preference moving forward, I would like to either consider each amendment individually or all of them together and not sort of have these like tiers that are hard to describe, like why they fell into different buckets. I understand why it happened, but I think it just is cleaner maybe to do it all one way or all the other way.
And I've been asked to have our items line by line to be considered individually. And to take the ones for Orange County, at least two commissioners individually, so they can consider each item separately instead of sending a slate.
Okay, so the commissioners intend to consider each item separately?
They would prefer individual votes on them instead of as a slate.
Okay, I will say, I think that may not be in line with our interlocal agreement. We haven't had some conversations on that with you and Orange County staff on the kind of why. Do we have anything else on the Q4 amendments?
I just asked one question, and my apologies, Sarah, if I had noticed this earlier, I would have asked you out of the meeting. I'm just looking at the cost for the staff position. I just wanted to make sure that the numbers line up, and on the back side of the page, it looks like it's a little different from the front side, so if you just take a look at that before we support, that's all. I find these forms difficult. It seems like some things tend to automatically populate on their own. So maybe as you look for it, that's something you can work on.
We'll revisit the Q4 at our regularly scheduled May meeting.
Can I just ask one question? And again, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Sarah. Just, this is really for my own understanding. We had a good conversation about Orange County's need to increase funding from this group towards staffing. I am just curious how, since we've included Durham, just understanding the relationship, I'm just curious. So Go Triangle handles data in Durham, city of Durham now, is that correct? I guess I'm trying to
Data
data
as in,
what had been the city of Durham's transit service.
oh, no, no, we did that for 13 years, but that contract was discontinued about 3 years ago.
Okay, so
So, but that has nothing to do with staff work group administration.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, there's the duties related to this particular board or staff working group and the plan, and then there's duties related to just transit service, and I'm just trying to figure out because other positions for Durham are listed as well. So I'm just trying to understand what does Durham County manage in terms of transit service?
So the duties for the staff work group administrator in Durham and in Orange are essentially exactly the same. And they came out of the duties from that the MPO used to do. It was a half-time position at the MPO to do both Durham and Orange together. And then when that was split out, it was a half-time position, one in Durham, half-time position, which it remains to today. And then a half-time position here at Orange County to do the Orange staff work group,
And
Yeah,
which is what the intent was. And the comparison, so Durham, that project sheet, I've explained this before, that's not just for salary and benefits. And they do not bill at a 50%. They are billing under the 50% position. So in other words, it takes them less than a half-time FTE to do the work.
that is not my understanding from talking to the staff over there, is that that person is 100% devoted.
It's not true, and I can send you the emails. It's just not true. We can ask TDA to actually verify that.
Yeah, Brandy Miner's position, she's a split between economic development and staff working group administrator. They bill on an hours. They actually have a whole
They
chart with
they bill on the hours, and there's several people that bill to that group.
staff working group.
Yeah.
Just Brandy.
No, but it's not, no, they don't do staff work group administrative work. They do work that's associated with other projects through the transit plan that are funded through separate projects.
that was really my question. So putting aside the work of the person who's assigned as the staff working group administrator, so the other positions here listed in Durham County, are they funded by the transit plan entirely?
No, none of them are funded. Well, we should ask TDA.
Yeah,
They're bits and
yeah,
pieces.
yeah, yeah. They have, I believe it's 3 or 4. I can look FTEs, so full-time equivalents. So they kind of track their hours. Like Ellen Beckman's part of her time she charges, but not all of her time
Okay.
to Durham Transit. Yeah.
So I guess that's what I was trying to understand. So is that, but you're not.
They bill considerably more hours
Yeah,
to the transit plan for administering the staff working group and the other projects.
Yeah.
And we are reaching the capacity of what we can do with the funds that are allocated
Mhm.
to administer this group.
What they bill that's more is for other projects. Right here, I have from Brandy, who is the staff work group administrator, that right now through the third quarter of this fiscal year, they have billed in salary and benefits $36,000
For branding.
for Brandy, who is
Okay.
the staff work group administrator, which is equivalent in duties and tasks to that which is here in Orange County
Is that through
But-
Q3 or Q2?
through Q3.
Okay, I guess that is what they've billed. They do have up to 100,000 available.
But
That's not just for staff.
But that's not just for staff, that's for graphic design. and
That is-
consultant work, but
That is true. That, yes, that is, but that staff working group administrator position that includes all those tasks does have up to 100,000 in Durham County.
so I guess the question I was trying to get to is, so in the sheet that was provided as an example, Durham County has 5 positions listed. So Durham gets a portion of all those positions funded through the transit plan.
Yes, a portion of their transportation director, their transportation
Okay.
planners, and a senior administrative officer are also billed to the transit plan.
Okay, and so for Orange County, right now, you're only getting a portion of the staff working group administrator position right now. And then presumably over the long term, you would likewise be trying to set up something similar where a portion of all of your positions might get funded through the staff working.
We're gonna look at that and see as part of that staff.
That's staffing, so
What makes sense there, but as of right now, we are at the capacity of what we can do with the resources available to administer the staff working group. And, that includes all the special meetings that we've had and the minutes and the advertising, all of those things.
And so just with that goal in mind, does your work compare similarly with what Durham County does? I'm trying to figure out what.
So
Durham County
the
does.
questions that you're talking about with
Excuse me,
Durham
Megan.
County are funded.
Hold on.
projects.
Excuse me,
Ron.
y'all, I guess,
It's a question to me and I'd like an opportunity to answer it. Durham County bills work that different people do differently.
Yeah,
And so we have one person doing that work instead of stretched across multiple.
yeah, and I get that. And again, I'm just trying to understand, what I was trying to get at is, the city of Durham manages what used to be called data, the city of Durham's transit service,
It's go, yes, it's
Okay.
city transit system.
which is comparable to what Chapel Hill Transit
Yeah.
does. So there's the relationship there. So I was just trying to get a sense of what the county does, which I assume is similar, Durham County does is similar to what Orange County does in terms of providing call and response for senior or special needs related transit. Is that
So,
fair?
so,
I'm just trying to get from.
yeah, so I can tell you how that works.
County, contracting for that service. with
Okay.
Durham.
Okay. That was
It's
all I
a
was asking.
it's actually a consolidated system. So about, I don't know, 7 years ago, the city and the county decided to consolidate their two transit systems. Durham County never had fixed route like Orange County does with the circulator, that sort of thing. It's only demand response.
Okay.
And it had been coordinated in prior years, but 7 years ago or so, 8 years, something like that, they actually consolidated it. So now it's very different. Orange
Okay.
operates their own transit system. But regarding the transit plan, the projects funded in Durham County through the transit plan are currently based on the projects that they are funded to lead through the transit plan. So they have the BRT study and the, I know they do the rail corridor. I'm not sure that any of that is actually the plan. And then they have other projects that they actually are the lead agency for. So that's what that other billing is for.
Okay.
Brandy's time is staff work group administrator. Nobody else is a staff work group administrator in Durham. Except for Brandy.
Thank you. I'm sorry to go down that little rabbit
I
hole.
mean, the Durham plan also brings in 10 times as much revenue.
That is-
So I think we need to also like just look at it from that perspective.
That was the other part of my question. I'm just thinking if somebody outside of this group was to see this section, to me, those would be logical questions. If we're gonna compare them, how do they compare? And then in terms of staffing services, and then certainly revenues. So I think the revenues is an important piece that maybe the Durham can afford to pay more than Orange County in terms of staffing, but thank you.
But I
I'm
also
sorry to go
think,
down that
I
rabbit
also
hole.
think a very important comparison is also prior year. And this is this is the first year where we've seen this sort of inability to perform the functions of the staff work group at the county. And in prior year, the work got done within budget. So I think why this year has it changed?
I think that there's a minimum baseline of resources that need to be in place. And while I appreciate, Meg, your comment about prior years' resources, if we compare across the board what's been expended and based the future year program on the previous year, it would be a much different picture because there are drastically underspent programs and projects every year. When we turned over that working group administrator responsibilities to the counties, a large part of it was because what we had been provided was significantly under-resourcing the positions that we needed to fill and the cost increases that we incurred by moving from the city to the regional council. And we, for the first couple of years, did not traditionally bill out the money we had requested for participating in the transit plan process and implementing the transit plans. But now we're realizing that it does take an extensive amount of time. We are making sure that we bill accurately to the transit plans. I will say in Orange County, having all of the municipalities as part of this group, where in Durham, there's 4 members of the staff working group, does add additional layer and complexity here. And I'm not sure, given that we weren't able to do the job well, even though it functioned as a staff working group administrators because of lack of resources, I empathize with Orange County not having the staff time and honestly the staff reimbursed for doing the work that it really takes here to do it well. And they're trying to figure that
So
out.
I think you stepped out when we noted that the resources doubled when they left the MPO to go to the counties. Because it used to be that the MPO did it at 50% time for both counties. And so they doubled when they came to the counties where they were 50% time just for their own county. So they already did double in scale, but we have reference with Durham, which is 1-to-1. But the more concerning thing is that this is in the ILA, that there are duties that the staff work group administration is meant to do, and they are not getting done in Orange. So I don't know that more cash,
And Meg, I'll remind you that we don't have an agreement for this year.
but you're not doing the work. Okay, that makes sense.
And this group's prioritizing holding more meetings
It's not my priority.
and so as this group schedules more meetings, that's where the time has to go, is to preparing for those meetings.
Yeah, I know, there's so much
And we've heard
dysfunction in this
from
organization
people,
this year.
we've heard from people repeatedly that they would like the packets 7 days in advance instead of what's required in the ILA. And we're doing our best to get those out in the timeframe of the ILA.
All right, we have plenty of discussion. This will come back to next month's agenda. Ask on Q4.
Sorry, can I ask just one question? And I think I asked this last month, but I didn't get an answer. There's something that's called an amendment, and then there's something that I've heard called a budget transfer. I've never heard of this, and I can't find this like anywhere in our documentation. Can you explain this to me?
Budget transfer.
Yeah.
The budget transfer
Okay.
can be used within the same ordinance category. For example, if you had Chapel Hill right now has 1 FTE, like 3 projects with 1 FTE. And if for some reason that 1 FTE, one of them in Q4, you started seeing it was going over budget, but you had a little bit left on that other FTE, you could do a budget transfer. You wouldn't have to go through the process of amendments through the county boards and go try the board. That you can do a budget transfer. Now,
Where is
moving,
that described?
I'll see,
You could
it's
send that to
probably
me.
several
That would be helpful.
years ago, because I think
Okay.
it started with weight transit and then it was carried over into
All right.
Durham transit and Orange transit, but I could find out the year that happened. So you can only do it in the ordinance. You can't
Sure.
change like in the ordinance category, like transit plan administration or bus operations. If like in Wake County, Raleigh will go over on Route 3, they need some money in Route 9.
Okay.
So they do a budget transfer between the routes because they break out their bus routes individually.
And
And same in Durham, so,
Well,
how
but not,
is it decided?
between like capital and like
Sure,
budget.
understand. Like, how is it decided that that like circumvents the amendment process?
I can look at the amendment.
Durham
policy.
has
It's a legal
additional-
ordinance.
Durham has additional stipulations on budget transfers in their financial policies.
And we don't have that.
Apparently.
Okay. So we should follow up on that because and
We are supposed to have a financial policies and procedures working subcommittee, but that's not been established yet.
I believe I called it back in February or March.
Been waiting.
I think I did point. I believe you requested to be chair. I pointed that.
And we've not gotten the name of who's supposed to be on that, because you said you wanted to appoint.
I'll follow up on that. I thought I'd done that, but if that's sitting in my queue, I can make sure that gets done.
Carolyn, I'll follow up and
Okay.
see if I can find
Thank you.
where the, and it should have been part of the budget amendment process, and there's line, other two transit plans, a section that just says, if it's within the same category, it can be moved as a budget transfer. So
Okay.
I'll find out where, it must have been voted on at some point, so I'll find out where it was voted on.
And I'm not aware that this group receives notification of any of the budget transfers as they
The
happen.
first time I was reading it was just a couple months ago when you all were looking into it. And that's why I was not, and I couldn't find anything. So yeah, it would be helpful just to better understand that. Thanks.
Assuming that the documentation is there and everybody's comfortable with that, this seems like it could be a good tool for Orange County this year to cover their staff work group needs.
But they don't have other staff that's funded.
It's operating, it's operating separate from admin?
Yeah, they just
There's
have.
three.
Yeah, we just have one.
I was thinking of the same, it's operating. Never mind.
Yeah.
FY 27 annual work program. I think given that we're not voting on it, we'll call a special meeting. The main things that seem to jump out, do we need the financials on the project sheets added back? We'd taken them out for the public release. Project scopes need to be verified by project sponsors to make sure that they can be properly reimbursed for what we're planning to do next year on a status quo budget. And the last item was just verifying that we can and are ready to make the elected board schedules.
I'd like to ask, because of the timing and the way things are working out between the quarter four amendments and the annual work program, how this group would feel about us proposing to move the staffing study from quarter four amendments to the 27 annual work program.
We voted on that last time. It didn't go through on the vote.
We didn't vote on that specifically.
We voted to forward it with status quo and the 300 and put the 24.
We did vote to release it to the public with that. Our vote for the elected boards could include the staffing study or it could exclude it.
To the boards.
Yes.
That would be discussed at a future meeting.
I think it would be discussed when we
Yeah.
vote on the plan.
Yeah.
Next
Right.
week.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that was it's my understanding is that's what we were gonna do.
Yes, I appreciate floating the idea. I think come next week, we can make a motion to vote on it with the transit plan or with the staffing study sheet included. We have it ready. We should have it ready to go. It shouldn't delay the vote. I think that would just be the opinion of the group when it comes time.
Switching it from Q4 to 27 annual.
Yeah, we should have materials to quickly get it in the FY 27 plan without needing to make serious changes.
Yeah, just given the timing, we want to move forward with closing the procurement and getting the consultant on board, and we can't do that until we have some assurances. We have to base a start date on when funds will be available for reimbursement, and the 27 work plan may be completed before quarter four amendments.
So we had a lot of questions around this last time that I think we still need to discuss. Probably next week, around what the scope is. I had a lot of questions about the whole procurement process. And then the, consistency region-wide on this also. Especially, well. I guess
Can you send me a list of questions about the procurement process that we can answer? Because I'm a little
Yeah, so,
confused as to
yeah, so it sounds like
questions.
you.
Are you accusing that we're not following
I'm
state
asking.
law?
No, I'm asking questions. So I'm asking if you released a procurement document with the funding for this project in that budget before this project was approved by any governing body?
Yes, we did, and we've not closed a contract on it, so nothing is available for reimbursement.
So the Durham portion will not be under contract either.
Right.
Everything.
Until this is moving forward.
And if this didn't get funded, you could just move forward with the Durham portion. Is that what I understood last time?
Which we potentially could.
Yeah, I think that.
But
I
it
think
would be a
we-
different-
I feel like we've talked about this several times
Yeah.
at this point.
In order for them both to move forward together, it would need to be, we need the assurances that the transit plan funding will be available for it.
But a big question is also what the actual scope is for Orange, because there's a big difference between thoughts on what that scope should be here among members of this body. And some of it's not consistent with what I understand the scope in Durham to be.
Well, it will be the same document.
Right, so that's not what a lot of people here think. That there are a lot of people here think that this is a different scope than what I thought it was in Durham.
But we fund studies and contracts for all of the partners before we necessarily know what the final scope is.
Right, but I'm saying that we should have that conversation because there's a very different expectation and a process that the consultants would need to go through if the scope over here is what a large number of people seem to want it to be.
I'm sorry, can you please be more specific?
Yeah, so,
Say what it is you're trying to
so
say, 'cause I
in-
have no idea what you're trying
yeah,
to say.
so in Durham, so I've talked about this before, so,
Mhm.
yeah, so in Durham, and same in Wakes is pretty much wrapped up, it's been approved. Right? Yeah, the
What
way.
is the scope problem?
So the scope problem is that those are fiscally constrained by what's available through the transit plans to fund staff in the jurisdictions that have transit plan funded projects. And here, there was a lot of conversation about people just wanting a general staff study of their jurisdictions that they could then use to prod their jurisdictions to perhaps get more staff. And they didn't see it as being fiscally constrained by what would be available in the plan. Now, we all know that Orange has virtually no money, in some years, and whether or not like a staffing study would determine that all available funds should be put toward the staffing and nothing else. Whereas in like Wake, there's a huge amount of money, so there's the ability to fund more staff. Durham is somewhere in the middle. So in Wake, it was based on essentially what was programmed in the plan and then what staffing levels were needed to support that. And then those communities that had very small amounts, small projects, small amount of service, they didn't get any staff because it didn't rise to a level that really warranted additional staff. So there's very different, and then in Durham, they've made it clear, the conversation is that it has to be fiscally constrained by the plan. So there has to be a connection to the plan, to projects funded in the plan, and a relative scale associated with that. Here, people were saying they just want to see what they could get for their jurisdictions, regardless of the capacity of the transit plan to fund those positions. And that's a completely different study.
Okay, can you, Ms. Johnson? On your understanding.
And you weren't here that day, so it's hard for you to imagine, but everybody but me, I think, saw it as a larger study that covered just all staffing needs across the board for these jurisdictions.
Well, I think a part of the process for everyone that will be a stakeholder in this discussion is understanding where they're at in their current overall staffing and in what share of that is reasonable and fiscally constrained by the plan. Like, we can't,
Could you do both at once?
I mean,
Yeah,
it's a series of steps.
Yeah.
And like Meg said, if you're not implementing much of the transit plan, then, any internal shortfall you have is going to be an agency cost, not a transit plan cost. So we're expecting the members during this process to bring that information to the table so the consultants can help us determine what the appropriate amount should be. I mean, as has been pointed out, we've done a lot of the work, both administrative and implementation in the past with much fewer resources and not made much progress, to be honest. So what is an appropriate level for staffing across the board to implement the transit plan as part of the agency's current work? I mean, we had really what wasn't even a half a person coordinating everything with the staff working group, including the administration, was at the MPO. But I don't know that I would say it was really done. And it's not the person's ability but the amount of resources to do it appropriately.
Right.
You know, back then, Stephen was the only person with TDA. And now TDA has several employees. So, I mean, we've got to right size this and understand what the available resources are. Or the answer may be that, you know, maybe there are too many projects that are in the queue right now that are up for sponsorship, and because it's good that, yeah, the entities, Chapel Hill Transit, I mean, I don't know how they're doing capital implementation and a CIG project,
Don't have many.
you know. So what, I mean, I think that what Meg brings up, we don't want to set unreasonable expectations, but we've got to understand what the right amount of staffing versus what the transit plan says it wants to do in the amount of time it looks like.
And I think that's the type of advocacy that I was trying to describe that I think is a value of this effort, in that sometimes maybe decision makers might need a rude awakening that, like, yeah, great, we want to do all these things, but can't unless somebody's ponying up some money for additional staff. And like, this county doesn't have the revenues that Wake and Durham do to just, you know, continually fund staff to implement projects. Like, we're just constrained in a different way. And I don't, you know, even if it spits out something that we can't actually afford, like, it will still say that, right? Like, it's like, we know you need this, but here's what you can actually do, or you need to not do these other things. And that's where, you know, for us, it's hard sometimes to bridge the divide between the town of Chapel Hill being a 60,000 person municipality and Chapel Hill Transit doing almost 5 million trips per year, which is like a small city, you know? So there's a dichotomy that's hard for us to describe sometimes, and it's helpful to have evidence of that.
I also think that from a lot of, well, I'll just speak for Hillsborough, I think there has been an attitude in the past that the transit tax could solve a lot of problems.
Yeah.
That there was just lots of money and that we can go to
Yeah.
the transit tax to solve whatever problems we're not.
Yeah.
So being able to show that that's not true and that there has to be other investment for other things, or we have to pull back from, you know, the buffet of projects that everyone's trying to move forward at the same time. It is beneficial to the municipality, so to have that. Because it also helps us sort of hone in on what the transit tax should be used for and how much time we need for that specific.
One of the issues that came out in the Wake process as well, which was interesting, and I think differs for almost all of you from the Triangle in particular, is that the jurisdictions need oftentimes to have full FTEs. Like, so we just need to say this is a whole FTE and it's 100% supported by the transit plan, whereas we function more like what you would see in a consulting firm, where it's 10% of this, 5% of this, 20% of that person collectively put together, and you have the whole group that can do Rust Bus, you know, for example. But the jurisdictions don't want that. They don't want piecemeal contribution. So it's more like whole FTEs, which for portions of it, like the staff work of administrative, that had been half, you know, but that's also very different. And I think we have to maintain that expectation just because our institutions work so differently. But, and the reason why the jurisdictions reported that was kind of what you're saying, that they still just needed to be able to secure the positions within their own jurisdiction. So
Yeah,
that's heard loudly.
I don't see either Durham or Orange necessarily sticking to like a full FTE as a measure. I mean, even we could take the way staffing study outputs and translate that to dollars, not FTEs.
Yeah, Durham did do that though, and I don't remember why. Don't remember why. City up, I don't remember why, but they did.
That's
The county did not.
county did not. I don't know what the history is or whether that's just an internal. I know Wake Transit wants to measure everything and you know, basically full FTEs.
Yeah,
And they have, like, the Wake Transit group at the capillary MPO is firewalled off from the resources that the MPO uses. So it's almost, it's its own project. It's reported that way within their accounting structure. And like, we have our own project force, both staff working groups, it's separate. But then our system is set up to allocate a percentage of staff based on the dollars.
Yeah.
So like Madeline's like 14% of your time.
Yeah.
And I think 2% of my time
right,
is what's allocated
and
to,
that's how we do it, yeah. And that's somewhat a remnant of just how our structures are, but in the jurisdictions, they have a hard time.
so, Meg, what we can do is we have some comments back from Cambridge, who is the consultant that we went forward in negotiating a scope with. We can take a look from the comments they just sent back and see where we are at as the contracting entity. And compared to what they proposed, if they're reasonable or if we're far apart on something. And then once we close the loop on those comments, we can send out the draft scope for information.
Yeah, that'd be.
And we can commit to do that in advance of next week's meeting.
We'll prepare for a potential of including that project sheet back in. Good to know the intent there. I did want to note the item of project sheets and financials. I think, yes,
As we get into the project sheets and the financials, can we ask TDA to add the staffing study into the financials for FY 27, so we can see what that looks like, to be able to compare the current version without it to a version with it?
Want to make sure if we make that.
200,000,
yeah, I
Just
think.
to show that it would.
yeah, but
Yeah, I think that's on the projections, which are not part of the transit plan itself. Is that the request?
Right.
Okay.
Just to show that it, that in case there's, certain.
Okay. I would defer to TDA on their capacity to do so. The main thing I think we do need from TDA ready to go is a version of the transit plan fund sheets that does have the staffing study ready to be included. Similarly, on those sheets, I think they do outline the financials and funds tied to each project sheet. Are we comfortable using these tables as the source of the funds rather than including them on the project sheets? If so, I think we can move forward with the transit plan as currently written. If not, we need to add those numbers back on the project sheets. I'll say that I personally am comfortable using these tables as the source of where funds are and what's allocated.
I will say use those as long as they're the most up-to-date ones from TDA. I want
Yes.
to make sure those are the correct ones from Stephen.
Yes.
Yeah, they look good.
And then would we also include that, the long range, like model sheet somewhere that shows the allocation through 2040?
I think we have not included that in the transit plan itself. We could include that, but via motion, when voting to move it to the elected boards. I am comfortable either way. I think it's a good resource to have in our presentation to the electeds, whether it's in the plan or not.
I'm agnostic. I mean, I don't know. I guess it is good to show that it's balanced. The format is not great for like general public distribution. I don't have an issue with it. There's anything there that could be shared.
Yeah.
It just doesn't have a lot of context if you don't know.
Right.
The project sheets we should review for accuracy.
Yes.
Should we look at the version that is in this most recent packet?
Yes, the version that's in this most recent packet, I think ultimately project scopes have been one thing that have not been touched by revisions to the plan as we adjust numbers down to get to a revenue neutral model. So the project scopes that are in the plan today are generally the ones that were submitted in December for new or increased project sheets and should be carried over from last year's plan. If not, we do want to make sure that they reflect what we're funding and not what the request was back in December.
Okay, and if we note that edits are required, what process should we follow?
That I think the ideal situation would be to get those edits in prior to the packet being published. We're certainly in a time crunch. I want to note we do have staff capacity issues there. I'd appreciate any input from Orange County staff on how best to handle that.
If the meeting is on Wednesday, to get a packet out on Friday, we would need all of that back from you all by tomorrow.
And you want just to like comment directly in the PDF sheets and send it to Emily, or what's your preferred process?
Send them to Emily and I both, that way we can double check.
Okay.
Have two people looking at it, I think that would be.
Okay.
Best.
I don't know if I have it. Just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I think the main ones are going to be projects that requested increased funding this year and were not awarded it in a revenue neutral approach, making sure that they still line up with what the work was last year. I think that just takes some going through. What I can commit to do is compare the existing scopes with last year's scopes and notify any project sponsors today if there are scopes that are substantially different and let project sponsors make those changes.
Is it using that these sheets have spaces for costs, but nothing in them? Like, I mean, just put a big white box over or something, like, is there a way to? I just could imagine somebody looking at it and be like.
If we insert that chart into the packet, we could put C page.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would that
Yes.
meet?
Yeah.
your needs?
Yes, I think that would be helpful. We do have those charts in the packet so we can point folks to page 12 or 13 or 11, just depending on whether it's operating or capital.
I'm
Is
not
it 11
saying,
to 13?
11 is operating, 12 is capital. So if we point capital ones to 12 and operating to 11.
and I'm not saying it is an issue or needs to be addressed, but.
Yeah.
If it does.
I'm sorry, what today is the meeting supposed to be next? Yeah, I don't have any, I don't have my calendar, I just really need.
We haven't scheduled it yet.
Okay,
We
But-
take care of that.
yeah, that's a.
Uh,
We're gonna have a vote on that.
I will say, my initial thought was scheduling on the next week on Wednesday on the 10th, or at 10 a.m. We could also go later if folks can't make that.
I can't make the afternoon, so 10 would be great for me.
And if you held remotely.
It can be held remotely. We can schedule it for an hour.
Is there any possibility of moving it back to 9:30 with people?
That's fine with me.
That would mean I could attend.
We get the morning
Yeah, I
of our annual staff retreat.
I mean, I can come from 10 to 10:25, so if we could arrange the agenda and get to it in the votes that we need. And that's not it for me.
Yeah.
This is late.
How about Thursday afternoon?
I can't make Thursday, Friday, or Wednesday afternoon.
Following.
Not at the office.
Oh, that's right.
Um, I do definitely want to include as many jurisdictions as possible. We do need a quorum. I am hearing a quorum on Wednesday morning.
You do staff retreat.
So how many people could make Wednesday afternoon?
I cannot.
I can make it work on Wednesday. So
I
the
have
retreat. Sure. Like, whatever you need.
The ideal situation for a special meeting is we truly just vote to release. We will have a motion to explicitly include the staffing study. And we know we will have any scope changes done prior to voting on it. So I think we only have one motion we know will be on the table. There may be a second motion to release as is. But let's knock it out.
Wait, release,
Or sorry, not release, approve.
recommend approval.
Yeah, recommend approval.
Okay.
But we have facilitators for the retreat. They can staff.
And you can do virtual, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would really appreciate 9:30 if that's possible for other people. That would mean I could attend.
That works.
That would mean I cannot.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Can you do earlier or later?
What time?
I could do a little later. Literally the only thing I can't move is 9:30 to 10, like that whole day. Any other time I can do.
What's the afternoon look like? Who's available in the afternoon?
I'm not available Wednesday afternoon at
Y'all
all.
are available in the
Yeah.
afternoon?
Is Logan available? to
Um,
represent?
Yeah, but we have two votes.
Well, who's your alternate?
Jay?
Stephanie is saying noon. I know that like people like to
I
eat
don't-
lunch then, but
Whatever it takes.
Yeah.
All right.
Accommodate.
Not hearing no's on noon.
I'm not available. I'm not available from noon on Wednesday through Friday. Out of the office.
for everybody else.
Okay, let me just go back
7:30?
for a second. You said that we're really just convening, we will have already reviewed the edits. We're just convening for the vote. So you expect it to be a fairly quick meeting, or is this gonna turn into a lengthy discussion?
This could always turn into a lengthy discussion. The hope is that we have a clear item that we're voting on and folks are clearly ready to come and vote yes or no.
So, noon, sounded like it had more people, but Meg's not.
No, I'm the only one that cannot make it in the afternoon, but we seem to have a 10 a.m. that works as long as we do it within 25 minutes.
Does that work for Carolyn?
I thought she said she could do it
Which time?
at 10.
And
I can do 10.
Yeah.
10 is okay.
And Stephanie just.
Let's just,
be out by 10:25.
if y'all are still talking at 10:25, then you're gonna take vote down. Motion.
We will get down to
Right,
business.
that's fine,
All right.
that's fine.
I'm hearing 10.
But I bet an invite would be great.
I'm hearing 10. I'll send the email right now for the group to formally give notice and we'll set up the invite and the agenda by the end of day Friday.
Yes, okay.
That is the end of the agenda except for updates. Anyone have any updates they'd like to share with the group?
We are moving into the second phase of engagement for our short range transit plan. And part of that project is funded through the transit plan. And I'm going to share out a media kit that everyone can use to help us spread the word, get engagement, things like that. We're sharing right now concepts. We get feedback, these aren't like fully baked ideas, but trying to get folks to engage and let us know what they think of the proposals.
We're
Not so rapid.
learning lots of great lessons.
So many lessons, whoever comes next.
I've had a couple of conversations with NCDOT that I'm going to update folks on, and it looks like bus on shoulder will be possible along this new stretch of 40. And so that's huge for all the operators. And we're also having the same conversation about a project on 85 at the Orange Alliance kind of line there, that's in spot 8. To include the opportunity for bus on shoulder there. We just know that that's a congested area, and so that would help all of us to move through that area.
There was a, RTA held a site visit to that 40 widening yesterday. That was really interesting, and that's.
We asked about that for a while, and they were able to say yesterday that that was a possibility.
The choke points are what, 12 feet at the bridge?
Yes, so
And the guardrail sections will be 14 feet wide.
that was the last remaining part with the budget.
We'll just want to make sure that when we do get into, because they've split out a couple of the bridges from the 85 widening project, try to advance them more quickly. We'll want to make sure that they include that the minimum shoulder width we need for boss in those bridge designs. Like that new 86 bridge, it's getting hit and damaged and they want to replace it soon.
Yeah.
Good.
Right. All right. Well, next meeting is next week, short and sweet. Motion to adjourn,
Motion to adjourn.
second. Any opposed? All right, thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Good meeting.
Got in under 2 hours.
Guys.
Only Durham will go so well.
We are